All right, welcome to the IMTS Creators Lounge. Absolutely wonderful opportunity. We're going to be speaking with Darcy, and she is with SAP, and we're going to be talking about a topic that is probably near and dear to everybody that's walking in front of us, FYI. Yes, you're listening. Supply chain. I saw that wave. Yes, supply chain, logistics, all of the stuff that makes this thing work out there. So anyway, how you doing, Darcy?
I'm fantastic, and I'm so excited to be at IMTS.
Don't you feel weird that you're in a sort of fishbowl right here? It's a fishbowl. Like everybody's walking by.
There is a fishbowl.
You're famous. I'm not. You're kind of the big deal right there. So have you been having a good conference?
It's amazing. The size and scale and the technologies here are amazing.
It's the Grand Canyon of manufacturing.
It is.
So
it is.
if you ever have you been to the Grand Canyon? Of course you have. What is the first thing when you first saw the Grand Canyon? What did you say? It's like, wow.
It's that big.
It's grand.
It is. It is big. It is a big deal.
And it does.
It is huge.
It is the same thing. We get dropped off on a sort of an escalator over there. You walk in, and outside of the fact that you're super confused about where to go, you're just inundated with big and just there's such dazzle out there.
Well, and you need golf carts to get to one section for the other, for goodness sakes. Yeah.
I've been zipping around to the various venues, shall we say, or little states, and I'm trying to see what's out there. But I feel like it's sort of like the Google, if it's not on the first page, if you're not in the first part,
right.
It's hard to walk back a mile and a half to get to the other stuff. But there's cool stuff back there.
Well, I cheated and made sure, as somebody who'd been here a day before me, what were the real cool things that were must-sees. It's kind of like doing your research before you go to Disney to make sure you get on the fast track. So I made sure I caught all the cool things. But it's overwhelming, but so exciting. So exciting.
Oh, it is. So now for the listeners, give us a little 411 on who Darcy is.
Well, who I am, I'm a supply chain professional with over 25 years of experience. They got me.
So you started
early.
At age 5.
I started after the 8th grade picnic, basically. Right. No, I started with Hewlett Packard right out of university, but very early on migrated to a planning and scheduling company, and that became my foray into loving the concept of complex algorithm and solving problems. And then my career spanned through all aspects of the supply chain, building and scaling small niche companies in logistics, in planning, in scheduling, in PLM, until about, 12 years ago, SAP kind of brought me into the fold because they pulled the whole thing together, what they call design to operate.
That's a heavy lift, man. When you start pulling all that stuff with SAP, to be able to sort of begin to pull that together and to be able to sort of make a cogent value proposition around a system that, well, is legendarily deep in functionality and all of the other stuff associated with it. Where do you start with that? It's like, hey, there's Darcy. She'll eat it. Come on board. Let's start bringing it together. Where do you start?
Well, with the supply chain, you're right. SAP has an intelligent enterprise, but for supply chain, you really divide it into design to operate. Is how do you design your product? How do you manufacture it? How do you deliver it? Right? How do you operate in the field? And all the planning and the scheduling around it to work with that large, let's call it ERP system, which has all the core functionality. So really supply chain is embedded and uses all that information to really make the planning manufacturing decision of the enterprise.
So just for the individuals that are out there that really they're listening, but define supply chain. Just define it.
Well, sure. Depends what industry you're in. If you're in the food...
Okay, if we're at IMTS.
Well, no, I was going to go by industry. If you're in the food industry, supply chain is from Mother Earth to point of consumption, right? If you're in the paper company, it's from stump to rump. It's everything from farm to fork. The supply chain is everything it takes from the beginning of the product till actually point of consumption. That is how you define the supply chain.
How does a platform like SAP and companies deal with that magnitude, that supply chain model? If we see the value in it, right. We see that there's inefficiencies and areas to gain value. If I'm a company and I know that, is it a journey, or how do I begin eating that elephant?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. First of all, it is a journey. It is a transformation. right? And the important thing is you do need a plan for that journey, but it's a high level plan. You have to have the vision of where you want to go, but the important thing is you need to start, and you need to start now. And where you start
yesterday.
Yes, and where you start depends on your business and where you're in the most trouble. But what I always recommend folks do is start where it's high value and a quick win to get results. That's where you need to start, and the rest of it will come.
Brilliant. What I hear you saying is that I think, and I'm a big advocate of that, many companies sit there and say, okay, here's the elephant. Let's try to do that right now. But gaining little victories, gaining true insights into the value that you achieve, saying, look, see, we saved $2 over here. All right, thumbs up. Let's do that. Let's scale from there.
That's right.
Let's just start building from that success.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. You can't wait till it's perfect because the technology has changed. So you have to kind of know where you want to go, but start the journey.
Let's sort of pose this question. So in a rapidly, and I mean rapidly changing market environment, the velocity, the speed at which innovation is happening. I mean, come on. There are use cases that are constantly being developed or discovered as a result of even just conversations that are taking place there. It's like, hey, here's a technology. Oh, here's a technology. Oh, here's a new use case. How does a company like SAP deal with that level of velocity, that dynamics?
Well, there's new technology coming out every day. And what SAP tries to do is to take the technology and bring it in so it's usable, scalable, and global. And the way you do that is you need to take feedback from what the ultimate customers need and then back into it. But it is tough. And also the whole concept of a use case, I sometimes don't like.
I agree. That's why I said, yes, another use case.
Well, because
chirpy, go, yes.
Well, because sometimes they're just science projects.
They are.
Right? As opposed to something, and all this technology works, and they have this technology, and then they look at, well, how are you going to really use that? So what SAP is very good at is taking the technology, putting it in a usable format in a business process that's usable. That's the whole concept with artificial intelligence and predictive, right? And machine learning, great technologies in and of themselves. They're of no value unless you can bring them into a business process that companies can use. That's when you get the value.
It seems to me that you're right. Everything's good. Quick wins. Yes. Real technology that means it's not a hovercraft that's going to change the world. No, this is real technology today that can truly positively impact your business.
Correct.
Key. But the real is like, if I'm a business and I'm trying to strategically sort of lay that out, right? Mm-hmm. I know it's like buying a HD TV today, and then there's a 4K or KTV right over here, and it's a week later. Does the system accommodate for that need for flexibility too? And simplicity. Don't make it hard for me.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And be sustainable.
Don't. Yeah.
Right. Well, you're right that technology can change overnight, but you have to put some stakes in the ground because you can't change a manufacturing plant overnight, and the investment that folks make are multiple year investments. So you do have to do a certain amount of due diligence and have faith that at least this technology is going to last. Now that's a very whole conversation of itself, is when do you buy into technology? Are you an early adapter? Are you, so that's the other whole thing, because technology does have a bell curve, right? Are you early? Are you when it's gaining, or are you a laggard? So the whole, where is that technology in its maturity is a key point in buying it. Personally, I don't, there are certain customers that, and you can be a first win by going in early. Some folks are more comfortable, and you don't want to be one on the lagger.
It's a good point, because I think that if you're not in the game, if you're not actively seeking out efficiencies like, tightening up your supply chain and seeing and have visibility into your supply chain, if you're not actively doing that with trusted Sherpas, not just any buddy. You've got to find that trusted that's a
right.
human connection.
Right.
And that is a connection that comes from collaboration, right? And if you're not collaborating, you're not talking about it, then you're not proceeding down that road, and you've got to play that game.
That's right. That's
See?
right. You got
Let's
it.
just sort of put the bow on that bad boy.
Well, you hit the collaboration.
Yeah.
Is so key. And what's interesting for me to see is that folks, companies, competitors recognized COVID was the start of it, how it is important to collaborate. The German automotive, Germans are very proprietary about their intellectual property, about everything, but they realize they're all struggling with the same parts. Maybe if they collaborated, it would be better for everybody.
See, and it's so funny because I recognize, yes, we understand the problem with COVID. We understand the pain. We understand the challenge. We understand all of that. But the flip side to that is all of a sudden people saying, well, I can't do this alone. I need to talk to somebody. I need to collaborate. I need to be a part of a bigger collective, for lack of a better term. And that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. So whole networks are forming.
Yes.
Regarding collaboration, whether it's collaborating. The most interesting one I think that SAP is doing is we have an intelligent asset network that is putting all your machine information into a network to share. So not only do I have information how my equipment is performing, but you can share how in general that performs and share that and learn it and put it in all sorts of models. It helps everybody.
But you,
in a safe, secure way.
That's right. And you as SAP, as a technology provider, have to stay super current on trends that are taking place in technology industry and whatever that might be, and also have that future vision of what that looks like too, and be a part of that. And the only way that I know, you can't just do this in a vacuum, in a bubble.
Right.
It's back here and all of the groups that well, SAP. There's a stat that we were talking about outside, that every transaction of some sort, what is it?
74% of the world's GDP goes through an SAP system.
Did you hear that out there? 74% of the world's GDP go through an SAP system.
Yeah.
Doggone it.
Big
This
number.
I don't even
Big
know.
number.
Is there a dollar amount on that?
Yeah, well, I'm sure.
It's a
I'm
lot
sure
of
we could
zeros.
calculate it out. Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I know that a lot of the vendors and a lot of the companies out here that are trying to do, and they're striving for simplicity to achieve the results that they desire, whatever it might be. Taking something that is, in my mind, complex, whatever it might be, but being able to deliver or be able to execute in a simple way. Does SAP as a whole company, sometimes it can be complex. Your system can be complex. It has a lot of capabilities. Is there a push to try to, because adoption.
It's huge.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, SAP does have a reputation for being complex. Now, in our defense, it is complex at what we do, right? But we do really have to strive to do a better job on ease of use. And that's been one of the key development criteria, I would say, evolving over the past 10 years or so. And the key to simplicity is really in making sure the graphical user interfaces are easy, it's intuitive to use, but I will also say it's in the presentation of the analytics, right?
Yes, very good.
Right, in what the system is doing, a lot of things complex, but really the only thing you need to present to a user is, what do I need to know? If everything's running status quo, I don't need to see all that. Just show me the things and present to me what I need to pay attention to.
And compress that time.
And compress it. And then possibly learn so you can see how I react to a specific situation. Next time you see that, decide that's what I would do. And so ideally, we want to change, the role that users play, and that a lot of things are automated and you only bring to their attention in an easy way what they need to pay attention to that day.
A confused mind does not make a decision. And so don't make them confused and don't inundate them with information that is valuable. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to minimize it, but it's not valuable to that individual. And you're absolutely spot on. And there's no getting around it. No getting around it. Visibility into your supply chain, the details associated with that, and where you deliver that data, that insights. And
that's huge.
It's huge. It's
huge.
And from a company's perspective, it It's real bottom line value to the bottom line.
Yeah, that it was interesting. The folks that struggled most at the start of COVID were the ones that didn't have the visibility. And the visibility wasn't in the hands of the folks that need to make the decision. That was number one. So you have to, first of all, start getting connected to get the insights, to get the information. And then once you're connected, then you can start putting some intelligent technologies on top of that to help you make some of the decisions in the best way.
Yeah. Now, okay, I'm going to have to be so when we start talking about what are the biggest challenges, the technology is the technology. The statement that you have to see or have visibility to your supply chain, undeniable, and it is important to your business. But there's always some element out there that's saying, no, I don't need to. No, whatever it might be. What are the biggest pushbacks?
Yeah, the biggest challenges, and there's a lot of change management involved, because what we want folks to do is stop looking in your own silo. That I run transportation, I run manufacturing, I'm a planner, and I'm making decisions, and my metrics are based on transportation spend, manufacturing productivity. And so there's change management to look across the whole organization to figure out what is the best answer for the supply chain, ultimately to get the consumer what they want, how they want, the price point they want in a sustainable way. That's the goal. And so it's getting out of the silo thinking to let you look holistically and make better decisions for the overall supply chain. What's interesting is senior level executives get this. Of course, I want a connected supply chain. Doesn't everybody, from design to operate? But then when you get down to middle management, we haven't quite evolved our organizations structurally or with KPIs to tell them that's the way we want you to manage the business. That, to me, is the biggest problem we need to work on. And we're making headways in bringing it down from a senior level to a middle management. But there's a lot of change management, organizational changes that need to be invoked in order to make that really work.
And it's a messaging. It's a human requirement. I don't know. I don't have a silver bullet. It has to happen.
It has to happen.
I think that if you have a passion to be a business that is resilient and have some legacy to it, you have to think in those terms. And sometimes, don't you think that it's just like I'm constantly being hit? I'm constantly having to be challenged with, oh, look at this thing, do this, pressure this, look at this. I just read about this. Hey, Scott.
All right, let's talk about that, because that is a key point. And because a few things, like, well, I'm going to wait till things settle down. Well, first of all, it's not settling down.
Nope.
The disruption is there, so you have to take that. The disruption happening and having to deal with these things is the new norm. Okay, and so what you need to do is strategically at a high level, sales and operation planning, work into your plan, your risk profile of the key, I'll call them guardrails that are important to running your business, to give you options at a very high level. And as you get down in that planning of where should I have my contract manufacturers, what plant should produce what countries am I in, where do I want to source raw materials, and you have to have options. No more single sourcing, because that won't work. That will cut you off, right?
Yep.
And as you set these guardrails up and your risk profile to know the areas where you really have to have backup plans, as you get into the actual execution down where you're talking weeks and days, where you don't have, the stuff is already on the boat coming over, right? It's too late to order new. That's where, if you've set yourself up right, then you're in execution mode. So when there's a blockage in the Suez, there's a rail strike, whatever there is, then you can operate in the most effective way because you've set alternatives up. You have multiple trucking
because you have to remove that noise.
You have to remove,
or it's just,
and you have to learn to accept it.
Yes.
And say, okay, I have the tools now, and that's where being connected, getting these insights, getting the technologies that can help you make the best decision when there's problems in the supply chain.
I got to tell you, man, Darcy, you're hitting on all cylinders. Love the conversation, love the solution, love the clarity behind what you were saying. How does somebody saying, boy, Darcy is like she is it? How do they get a hold of you?
Oh, LinkedIn. It's Darcy MacClaren at SAP.
Yeah, I did look at her LinkedIn stat card, and it's quite full. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the best way.
Well
or
done.
Darcy.MacClaren@SAP.com. You can always do that.
Well, my recommendation is if you have any essay or any supply chain questions as people walk on by, Darcy is the person you need to connect with. And nobody's listening to me. How come they're not listening to me?
They're always listening to you. And thank you so much for giving me a forum to talk about. I love talking about this stuff.
All right. All right. We're ready to wrap it up. Thank you very much for IMT Plus Creators Lounge. You were absolutely spectacular. Thank you, Darcy, for joining.
Thank you.